Hi, I'm Todd Ellingson, a software solutions consultant at Dell Statistica. Today I'll demonstrate how to install Statistica Enterprise. Before beginning the installation, you will need the following: an existing database to be used as the Statistica Enterprise metadata repository. If you are installing Statistica Enterprise for the first time, this will be a new empty database. If you are upgrading an existing Statistica Enterprise installation, you will use the metadata database from that existing installation. If your database requires drivers on the local machine, as for example with Oracle, those database drivers must be installed before installing Statistica Enterprise. If an older version of Statistica Enterprise is currently installed, you must uninstall that first before installing the newer version. You should be logged into Windows as an administrator on the machine where you will install Statistica Enterprise. And make sure you have your Statistica Enterprise installation keys. When you start the installer, you will see the welcome screen. Click Next. Now enter your installation keys. Once the keys are entered, accept the license agreement and click Next. For this demo, we will select the Custom Install option. Click Next. Now let's review the custom setup features. Statistica Enterprise has several components, some of which are optional add-ons. Several of the components can be installed on separate machines. The components you see will depend on your installation keys. Statistica is the core desktop product, including the computational algorithms. The License Manager service communicates with all machines where Statistica Enterprise components are installed. It continually tracks the total number of licenses in use across all machines. This service should only be installed on a single machine. Components on other machines will communicate with the license service via TCP/IP. Web Statistica is the web server component. If you install Web Statistica on a separate machine, you must also install the Statistica component on that separate machine. The Monitoring and Alerting service, also known as MAS, is used to automatically run large numbers of analyses on a user-defined schedule. Because its typical use case involves large numbers of frequently run analyses, we recommend always installing MAS on a dedicated server. In that case, the Statistica component must also be installed on that dedicated MAS server. Web data entry is used for manually entering data via a web user interface. It also requires the Statistica component be installed on the same machine. The Workstation Installer component is used when installing the Statistica desktop application on multiple machines. You install the Statistica component and the Workstation Installer component on a single machine. That creates a Workstation Installer folder on that machine. The Workstation Installer folder is a subfolder of the Statistica folder where the executables and DLLs are stored. You need to share that Statistica folder with read-only permissions. You can then install the Statistica desktop application on subsequent machines by going to another machine, browsing across the network to that shared Workstation Installer folder, and running the Workstation Installer executable found in that directory. Notice on the bottom of the dialog, you can specify the folder location where each component's program files will be placed. For this demo, we will install all components on the same machine. Click Next. The next few options pertain to the Statistica Enterprise metadata database. If you are installing Statistica Enterprise for the first time, and your existing metadata database is new and empty, select Create a New Database. Note that the term New Database is a little imprecise. The new database should have already been created. The Statistica Enterprise installer will build the necessary table structure within that database. If you are upgrading an existing Statistica Enterprise installation, select Use an Existing Database. For this demo, we will select Create a New Database. When we click Next, we are prompted for the type of database. We are using a SQL Server database. Click Next. Now we need to enter the database server name, a username and password for the database, and the name of the database. Be sure to select the Allow Saving Password option. Click Test Connection to verify the installer can connect to the database. Note that your database credentials must have permission to add, drop, and modify tables, views, and indices. When you click OK, the installer will build the necessary table structure in the database. If you are installing the Web Statistica component, you can choose whether to enable the Web Statistica Reports option. I recommend always choosing Yes. You may not use it, but there is no harm in including it. Click Next. The Web Statistica component also requires a server hostname and TCP/IP port. You should choose a port number that you know does not conflict with some other application, for example McAfee antivirus software. Click Next. The License Manager port numbers will be used by the Statistica License Manager service to communicate with other machines running Statistica Enterprise components. The two port numbers must be different. Once again, you should choose port numbers that you know do not conflict with other applications. I recommend always checking the option to use fully qualified domain names. It may not always be necessary, but there is no harm in checking it. Click Next. You have the option to rename the Start menu folder. You can also choose to create a desktop shortcut. I prefer to keep my desktop uncluttered, so I usually deselect that option. Click Next. If you are installing the License Manager service, you need to enter the information for the person who will be contacted when your Statistica Enterprise license needs to be renewed. You must fill out all sections. I will enter my information. After all the information has been entered, click Next. Now we are ready to register Statistica Enterprise. If you are installing to a machine with an internet connection, the automatic registration option will create a new Statistica Enterprise license file on the machine. If you select Manually Register, then the installer will create a temporary 14-day license file. That will give you plenty of time to complete the manual registration process. The manual process saves a registration file to the location you choose. You then upload that registration file to the registration website at registration.statsoft.com. For this demo, we will select the option to automatically register. Click Next. Here we see the registration was successful. Finally, click Install. The speed of installation depends on the speed of your computer, but installation typically takes about 10 minutes.